So welcome back. We are in part two of taking you through the guidelines on the semester project. I believe we left off with looking at the steps for slide 5. Again, if you need to review those steps from slide 1 through slide 5, feel free to go back to part 1. But in part 2, we're going to pick up and proceed from there. So let's see, we're talking about give a short summary of what happens in the text. And again, as I was saying before, make sure that you keep that fairly concise, fairly brief, because that's really far from the most important feature of your presentation. So let's move on and talk about slide 6. This is where it's going to start to get a little trickier, okay? Because you are going to be combining several different things that you are going to have to do with this project. So for slide 6, what you're going to do is point out the protagonist. Who is the main character of this particular story, this particular hero's journey, whatever the case may be. Do keep in mind, not all of the stories are hero's journey stories. All right, so make sure that you make that distinction. Most of the works from week 3 module, the hero's journey, those would fall into that category. Other works like the stories from the Hebrew Bible, the Canterbury Tales, the poems of Petrarch, obviously those are not going to fit that bill. But anyway, as the case may be, this is the slide where you're going to talk a little bit about who that main protagonist is. Now, again, if you are, let's say that you choose to do your presentation on Petrarch, for example, this is where it might get a little bit more problematic because we're dealing with poems and not with stories. But even there, you can think about who is the speaker of this poem. We know that in most cases that was Petrarch himself, that these poems are very autobiographical. So you could take that approach if you happen to be doing one of his works. But you're going to explain who this character is, what he or she is like. Think about the characteristics. What do we learn about this character? Now, once you do that, you're going to pick a quotation about the protagonist from our textbook. And it says here, introduce the quotation with your own words and cite correctly in MLA style. In other words, you're going to pick a quotation that you think is most characteristic of that character. If you had to pick one thing that character said at any time, or something that somebody said about that character, what would that best representation quote be? Something that would really help sum up everything that we know about that character. And again, you're going to explain in your own words what that quotation means. All right, let me see if I can scroll up here, see if it'll let me do it. Slide 7. This is going to get into your own subjective opinion. Explain what you like or do not like about the protagonist. Your protagonist might be a character that you really admire for a lot of reasons. It could be a character that you don't admire, and that's good if you want to do that. Or it could be, might be a little of both. Sometimes we can admire somebody and still find fault with them. So however you stand with that character, you're going to explain that as we get into slide 7. Can you relate to this character? Give some examples in your own words. So again, you can see here there's going to be a lot of room for you to provide those subjective opinions, much the same way that you did with your reflection paper. Find a quotation about one other character from our textbook and explain what you like or do not like about this character. That, I feel like that's not explained as clearly on this handout as I would like for it to be. So again, that's a good justification for why we do the videos as well as just presenting you the document. What we mean by that is you're going to pick another character from the same work. All right, so in addition to the main character, you're going to pick at least one other character from that same work and explain what you like or don't like about that character. And again, just like before, explain in your own words what the quotation means, cite in MLA style. Now, let's say there's not a second character. Then find a quotation in the text that you like best and explain it in your own words. Is there an issue in the text, something that happens that impressed you? Why did it? And cite that in MLA style. Slide 9. Find a question about the text from a secondary source. Let me back up. I think I said question. I meant quotation. Find a quotation about the text from a secondary source out of our databases. Now, you've got a whole folder included in this module that's going to instruct you in how to do that. Most of you probably have had some experience with using our databases. In 102, you would have had to, in English 102, you would have had to have written a research paper, and most likely you were required to use the databases for that. But anyway, you've got that folder of instruction if you need it. You can pick whatever you find interesting, explain in your own words what the quotation means. So you're going to take the words of that scholar and you're going to put that quote on your slide, and then in your own words, you're going to sort of paraphrase, I guess, what that quote means to you. What is that scholar arguing there about that work or that character? Slide 10. Give your evaluation of the text. Why do or don't you like it? Is it difficult to read? Is it difficult to understand? And again, so what we're asking you for there is really not a whole lot different from what you would have done on your reflection paper. Now, here's where it gets a little bit grayer, okay? You're going to submit also, in addition to your presentation, you're going to submit a separate document of 1 to 2 pages. And this should be uploaded as a Word or PDF document. All right, so you're going to upload a separate document. Tell me how you can relate to the text. Are there any issues that you are familiar with? Do you have similar traits as one of the characters? Is there a character that is very different from you? Do you see a friend or family member in one of the characters? Use at least one quotation from our text and one quotation from each one of 2 secondary sources out of our databases. So, in other words, total, there will be a minimum of 3 quotations cited in MLA style. And for the paper, you will also need a works cited page. Okay. And then we've got our list here of eligible works, but that has been updated. So when you open these guidelines separately, you'll see that the works that will not be included have been eliminated from the document. So again, Oedipus, the Iliad we did not cover because it's summer. Oedipus is still ahead of us. Hamlet is still ahead of us. So again, those works will not be eligible, but all the others will. All right, let's see. Your presentation should show that you have read the text and are very familiar with it. Don't choose a text if you're still grappling too hard with what the heck it's even about, all right, because you're just setting yourself up for failure if you do that. Each slide needs to clearly state what it represents. Everything needs to be in your own words except the quotations. Can't stress that enough. Give the works cited citation for the quotation you find in a secondary source, and give the in-text citations for your quotations. All right, and definitely feel free to email me with any questions, or if you want to set up an office consultation, that's fine too. I realize it's a lot, and some of it I'm still learning because this is more of a department requirement, not necessarily something I came up with myself. So I'm still kind of learning all the steps that we're requiring here myself. But I'll do the best that I can to help you through this. So I'm just scrolling through here to make sure I haven't skipped anything really urgently important that we need to talk about. But again, feel free to contact me if you have any questions, anything that I haven't covered here that you'd still like to know about this project. All right. So I'm going to sign off here before the recording cuts me off. And happy researching and happy thinking about this topic. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you all come up with. All right. So talk to you later. Bye-bye.